Hi everyone, Dr. E here, and I am going to provide you with a video that goes over the assignment guidelines and expectations for the written response. So this is just a general video that applies to literature courses and those expectations as well as the writing courses. So don't be thrown if you see something very specific in here because generally the guidelines are the same. But first I want to show you where to go just to find these materials and then I'll walk through them. All right, so in D2L we have our content area, and if we click on the syllabus, scheduled rubrics, whichever module has all the materials for the course, you'll have the written response materials, and then you have the guidelines and the template. And after this video, I will also post the video here so you have an additional resource. So the first thing I want to walk through are just the general guidelines. So this is just an opportunity for us to really engage with those things that we're reading and learning about, to think critically about those things. And this is also something I want you to really consider as a discussion post, but one that you are uploading just for me, right? So instead of posting it for everybody in your group or everybody in the course to see, this is something that I can give you direct feedback on in a way I can't necessarily do with those discussion posts. So I don't want you to feel as though this is an essay that's due all the time. It is not. It is something that will eventually lead to the portfolio assignment, which is a major assignment for this course, but we're not going to think about that right now. All we're thinking about is this week, perhaps this assignment, okay? So I'm going to walk through those guidelines. Definitely take some time to read through this. I'm not going to read through every single thing because how boring, right? So you are going to upload a document in the typical format that's available for D2L. Give me 1 second to cough. And I put here, I'm going to provide a template that follows MLA formatting guidelines, so please use it. You'll probably get tired of hearing me say this, but if there's a template that's already in MLA format, why not use it? Because one frustrating thing about Microsoft Word is that the default font is not correct, the default spacing is not correct. There are some funky things going on with the just kind of basic default document that's opened when you utilize Microsoft Word in any format, Google Docs, full version, anything. So the template has everything set up so that you don't have to worry about it. So use it, right? All right. So there's no reason to go through the pain of adjusting a document, right? And I put here just a reminder, you should download your free copy of the full version of the Office 365 suite. There's a link. The full versions are definitely going to help. All right, so each entry, each weekly kind of assignment, if you have a written response due that week, should include the week number. So week 1, 2, 3, whenever. The text title, and this is something that I want you to really think about. Usually we are approaching a particular chapter in a book or a selection in a course text or anthology. That is the title we need, not the title of the overall book. Okay, so we want specifically what chapter, what's that title, that kind of thing, and the author that has written that. So the author's name is what comes next. And I put here for English 1301 and 1302, we have a text that's set up a bit differently than what we see in literature courses. So for this, you just need to use and give credit to the name, the last names of our course editors, which are right here. And so I put for MLA formatting, while using our course text or article shared by Dr. E, we must put the text title in quotation marks, right? So any item in the literature book has quotation marks around it because it's an entry in an anthology, and every chapter title in English 1301, 1302, those courses, those should be put in quotation marks as well because that's just standard MLA. The overall book title or overall anthology title would be italicized. Back in the day it would be underlined, but we don't underline them anymore. But any entries, chapters, anything from those texts should be in quotation marks. Okay. So after I put these 3 things together, this is where you're going to answer a prompt. So you'll have a specific prompt that you're working towards answering. And I put here, it's not a formal essay. Again, it's something that's akin to a discussion post. I can just give you that more direct feedback, but it also requires MLA guidelines. It does not require a works cited because I've assigned the prompt. I know what you're reading, right? But it does need page numbers. You know, when you're utilizing quotes, which you should do if the instructions say to, we need page numbers, right? So finally, you're actually going to choose a quote that is meaningful in some way. So it's something that's important, connected to the reading. I want you to include the quote, right, following MLA guidelines. Use in-text citation format. If you need to review this, click on this link. It will go directly to the area where we talk about how to use quotation marks, how to reference the author by using last name. So if you scroll down here, you'll see some different options. You know, this is the page number, and the author's last name does not need to be included because it is here in the sentence. This is the same exact example, except the author's name is taken out but put in those parentheses. The period always goes after the parentheses. It always goes after the parentheses. Okay, just making sure that that is very clear. I know MLA is confusing. I know, it's okay. We're going to get through this. All right. So make sure that you're kind of taking some time to review that if need be. So you're going to choose that quote. You're going to follow MLA guidelines, but I really need you to explain the relevance and context, meaning what does this quote even mean, right? So an important or relevant quote to you may not be the same for another person. It may not in me strike a chord until you explain why it's something that's important for the overall chapter. Is it a main idea? What is the author talking about? This is something we really have to start practicing, because whenever we utilize a quote in our writing, we need to explain it, right? Sometimes students will drop quotes in paragraphs and there's no context, there's no author, there's nothing that kind of helps your audience understand that connection. But we're not going to do that, right? We're always going to offer that kind of explanation and context, and we're always going to give the author credit for those words, right? Okay, so I put, you know, why is it important? A full citation or works cited is not needed. Here's a very general kind of grading rubric, just so you can keep your mind on, you know, what assessment will look like. So we really want to stick in this column right here, where you're showing real engagement with the prompt. You're answering all the different aspects of the prompt. You're thinking critically. You're not just summarizing unless that is specifically something that's asked for. Well written and edited. Your grade for writing is always going to be based on how effectively you communicate your ideas. So as I've said before, hopefully you really have taken this to heart. I am not the grammar police. I am not here to nitpick and count off a point for every comma splice or every missed punctuation, or I'm not about that. I don't think that's helpful when it comes to writing feedback. But what does impact your grade overall and how effectively you communicate is how often those things occur. So if there are just, if there are issues after issues when it comes to some of the things about grammar, you're not effectively communicating your idea right. I may not be able to understand your ideas. That's when your grade starts to be impacted. But that's why I always want to encourage you to utilize all the resources available to you, whether that's the spell and grammar check feature in Microsoft Word. It's not perfect, but it's something. Download Grammarly. Why not? It edits and it helps you as you go, right? So we should definitely make use of those tools. If you are very concerned about your writing, or if it's a particular prompt that's giving you trouble, add a tutor visit to your arsenal, right, of options. Tutors are very helpful. They're very kind and patient, and they can give you really good feedback if you need that. All right, so we're working in here, and note that, you know, some weeks it may be based on kind of a completion of check plus, check minus, but most of the time we're sticking to very specific kinds of grades. All right, so that's the basics. I also want to go over the template, which is available to you. Again, it's set up in Microsoft Word format. You will need a header up here on the right. That's a header. If you double click, if you see how I can't just click on it easily, Microsoft Word does that so that you then don't have to manually enter the page number on every single page of your work. You should not be doing that. That throws off the formatting of your document. Why not make Microsoft Word do the work for you? So if you go up here, just double click. If you double click, then this area is grayed out and you can actually edit this. So this is where you'll want to put your last name, double click outside of it to then get to the rest. You'll put your name here. Are you in English 2323? Are you in English 1301, 1302? So make sure your course number's here. Leave Dr. E, that's fine. And then you want to put the due date. Sometimes students want to enter the date they started their work in order to show, hey, Dr. E, I started my work really early, right? I appreciate that. But for MLA, we actually put the due date. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. All right, you put the week number here, and then you put the title, and I put, it's usually in quotation marks, and then the author's name or editors, right? If you're working with that kind of text. So if you're in a lit course, if you're utilizing the biography for an author or the introductory chapter for a certain time, then that's when you would credit the editors. In English 1301, 1302, you're probably more often than not going to credit the editors unless it's an article or something that you've been assigned. You'll begin your response here. You know, you'll typically have 3 to 5 paragraphs, and then after hitting the return key, place your quote here with your explanation. This is another reason I really emphasize using the template, because it gives you that reminder of the quote. I would say 99% of the submissions I've received over time that have points taken off for just some of the basic things, it's because somebody's forgotten the quote. And that's really important because I want us to not only practice MLA formatting, but I also want to practice the explanation, the context, you know, all those things we need when it comes to writing and research that you will use in most academic writing. And it also helps me kind of understand what you're finding important and useful. Okay. So that's the template. Go ahead and use it. I wanted to give you an example, and this is Anita. She allowed me to share this. This is from English 1302. You'll see that she's put, this is the overall title of the book, this is the title of the chapter, this is the editor, and she also had to write something for a TED Talk that we watched. Sometimes you'll have more than one reading to assess, but that's not always the case. So you'll see that she's connecting her ideas. She's writing 3 paragraphs. She's, you know, utilizing quotes. She's offering page numbers. She's giving credit. Lunsford mentions. So just all around doing a good job of kind of addressing what on the, you know, for the basics of MLA, but also, you know, critically thinking about the ideas. There's a space, and she's offered a quote here, given Shen credit. He's the speaker, and he said it at this time during his TED Talk. And then she's offered an explanation. Okay, you'll see that she has a heading, or I'm sorry, a header on each page, as well as, of course, her heading on the first. All right, so I don't want you to be overwhelmed by this assignment because, again, I really want you to consider it a kind of discussion post, but something that comes straight to me. But my expectation is that there is going to be a bit more time in terms of revising and editing, making sure your ideas are clear, showing what you understand, but also effectively communicating your ideas, okay? And down the road, we will come back to our written responses when it comes to the portfolio, but the only thing you need to focus on is this upcoming week or this upcoming written response assignment. And as always, just let me know if you have any questions.